Tips to improve your English pronunciation. Pause the video to repeat phrases or words. Record your voice and compare it with the video. Actively listen, identifying familiar words or phrases. On my first day at the track club, I arrived very early because I did not want to be late or look careless. The field was bigger than I expected, with red lanes, white lines, and athletes already warming up near the starting area. I felt excited because I had wanted to join this club for a long time, but I also felt nervous because everything around me was new. Then I met the coach, and in the first seconds I understood one important thing: he spoke only English. He smiled, welcomed me, and started giving instructions right away, and my heart beat faster because I knew this would not be easy. I could understand some simple words like run, stop, breathe, and faster, but many other things passed through my ears too quickly. The coach spoke with energy and confidence, and the other athletes answered him immediately, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. They moved when he spoke, changed direction when he called, and adjusted their rhythm without needing extra explanation. I stood there for a moment, trying to follow the sound of his voice and the movement of the group at the same time. Inside, I felt afraid of being too slow, not only with my legs, but also with my English. I did not want to stay behind on my very first day. When the warm-up started, I watched the others carefully and tried to connect each command to each movement. If the coach said something and the group began to jog, I told myself that word must be connected to running. If he raised his hand and everyone slowed down, I tried to remember the sound he had just used. I knew I could not understand every sentence, but I also knew I could learn from patterns, gestures, and timing. So instead of panicking, I made a decision. I would pay attention to every sound, every repeated word, and every small detail. If I listened closely enough, maybe my ears would begin to catch more than my fear wanted me to believe. After a few minutes, I began to notice that the coach used some words again and again, and that helped me feel less lost. He said, breathe when we were tired, keep going when the pace became hard, and slow down when he wanted more control. I repeated those expressions quietly in my head while I ran, trying to match the sound with the action. The other athletes still looked much faster than me, not only in running, but also in understanding, and that made me feel small for a moment. Still, I did not stop. I kept listening, copying, and trying, because I could already feel that this club would teach me more than just how to run. By the end of practice, My legs were tired, my shirt was wet with sweat, and my mind felt full of English sounds. I had not understood everything, and I had made small mistakes, but I had survived the first day without giving up. More importantly, I had learned that listening carefully could help me move, even when my vocabulary was still limited. As I walked off the track, I looked back at the coach and wondered why he had accepted me into the club if my English was still so weak. That question stayed with me while I left, but so did something stronger, the feeling that if I kept paying attention, I would not stay behind for long. On my second day at the track club, I arrived a little earlier because I wanted to feel more prepared than before. I still felt nervous, but now I already knew the coach's voice, his energy, and the rhythm of the place. As soon as practice began, he started using simple commands again, and this time I listened even more carefully. I heard phrases like run faster, slow down, keep going, and breathe, and I tried to hold each one in my mind. The words were short, but they had power, because every athlete moved the moment they heard them. While we warmed up, I tried to do two things at the same time: copy the pronunciation and understand the movement. When the coach said run faster, I repeated it softly in my mouth and pushed my legs harder. When he said slow down, I tried to relax my pace and control my breathing. I also repeated keep going and breathe while running, because saying the words helped me remember them better. At first it felt strange to run and practice English together, but after a few minutes I noticed that the sound and the action started to connect in my head. It was like my body and my ears were learning at the same speed. Then the light climax happened during a group drill, when the coach gave a quick instruction and I understood it the wrong way. I thought he said run faster, so I accelerated suddenly and moved ahead of the others without checking the group rhythm. In fact, he had said slow down, because we needed to stay together for the next part of the exercise. For 1 second I almost crossed into another lane and disturbed the whole line, and I felt my chest tighten with embarrassment. The coach raised his hand and corrected me right away, and I quickly stepped back into position, but I knew I had almost caused a problem for everyone. That mistake stayed in my mind during the next part of the session, but instead of giving up, I decided to use it as a lesson. I focused more on the sound of each phrase and less on my fear of being wrong. I noticed that the coach repeated the same commands with the same rhythm and tone, and that helped me hear the difference between run faster and slow down more clearly. I also started repeating the commands quietly after him, not only to practice pronunciation, but also to fix them in my memory. The more I listened and repeated, the easier it became to react correctly. By the end of practice, I understood something very important about this club and about myself. Running well was not enough. I also needed to listen well, because the coach's words guided everything we did. If I wanted to improve, I had to train my ears, my mouth, and my legs at the same time. That day showed me that pronunciation was not just for speaking class. It could change my timing, my movement, and even the whole training around me. As I walked home tired but thoughtful, I knew that hearing carefully and repeating clearly would become one of the most important parts of my progress. During the next training sessions, I began doing something new without planning it at first. I started repeating the coach's commands out loud while I ran. When he said, "Run faster," I whispered the same words as I pushed my legs forward. When he said, "Breathe," I repeated it and matched the word to the rhythm of my body. At first I felt a little strange, because no one else was doing it the way I was, but soon I noticed that it helped me a lot. The words stopped feeling like separate school vocabulary and started feeling like part of the training itself. The more I repeated the coach's phrases, the more clearly I began to hear the sounds inside them. I paid attention to the strong parts of each word and to the way the coach's mouth shaped the sound. I tried to copy him as closely as I could, not only because I wanted to understand him better, but also because I wanted to improve my own pronunciation. It became like a second exercise inside the main one. My body ran while my voice learned. I discovered that speaking the commands helped me focus on the movement and stopped my mind from filling with nervous thoughts. Instead of worrying, I listened, repeated, and moved. Little by little, something important started to change in the way I understood English during practice. Before, I usually heard the coach's commands and then tried to translate them in my head before reacting. That made me slow and uncertain, especially when he spoke quickly. But after repeating the same phrases many times, I began to recognize them faster, almost like my body understood before my brain finished thinking. When he said, "Keep going," I no longer needed to stop and translate every word. The meaning reached me more directly, and that made me feel lighter and more confident while running. This change felt like the first real climax in my training, because it showed me I was not stuck at the beginning anymore. I still made mistakes sometimes, and I still needed to pay close attention, but I could feel real progress in both my English and my running. The coach's voice no longer sounded like a wall in front of me. It sounded more like a guide I could follow, even when I felt tired. Repeating the phrases gave me rhythm, and that rhythm helped my pronunciation become cleaner and my steps become more controlled. Even with that progress, one question stayed in my mind every time practice ended and the field grew quiet. Why had the coach chosen me for this club when my English was still weak and my running was not the best? I watched the other athletes, who seemed stronger, faster, and more comfortable with the language, and I wondered what he had seen in me. That question did not leave me, but instead of making me feel small, it began to push me forward. I wanted to improve enough to understand the answer one day. So I kept. One afternoon the coach announced that we would have a very hard practice, and I understood it from his serious voice even before I caught every word. The sky was gray, the air felt heavy, and everyone on the track looked focused and a little tense. He explained the plan in fast English, using many short commands one after another, and I had to listen while warming up at the same time. My heart beat faster because I knew this would not be like the other days. It felt like the club was asking me to prove that I truly belonged there. When the running started, the pressure came immediately because the coach did not give us much time to think. He called, "Run faster, keep going, slow down, breathe, change lanes," and the words reached us one after another like waves. I tried to follow, but after a few laps my legs felt heavy and my chest was burning. The speed of the commands made my mind feel crowded, and for a moment I almost stopped running because I thought I could not do both things together. I was tired, confused, and very close to giving up in the middle of the track. But just when that thought came, I remembered the words I had learned in the first days and the way I practiced repeating them. Instead of trying to understand everything at once, I focused on the key sounds I already knew well. When I heard "breathe," I repeated it softly and let my body follow. When I heard "keep going," I said it again and pushed myself forward. I realized I did not need perfect English for every second of the practice. I needed to trust the words that were already inside me and use them without fear. That idea changed the rest of the training for me, because I stopped fighting the coach's English and started moving with it. I kept running, speaking small parts of the commands out loud, and using my voice to guide my rhythm. My pronunciation was not perfect, and I was still tired, but I was no longer frozen by confusion. Step by step, lap by lap, I stayed with the group and finished the hard session without quitting. When the final whistle blew, I bent forward, breathing hard, but inside I felt proud because I had passed a big test. As the others walked away to drink water, the coach called my name and asked me to stay for a moment. I felt nervous again, wondering if I had done something wrong, but his face was calm. He spoke slowly this time and said that he had noticed something important in me from the very beginning. He told me that many runners are fast, but not all of them keep trying when they feel lost, tired, or afraid. That was the first clue about why he had chosen me, and hearing it gave me new strength. I left the track that day exhausted, but with a stronger feeling growing inside me, because maybe the coach had seen my effort before I could see it myself. After many weeks of hard practice, I noticed that the track no longer felt like a place of fear. I still worked hard, but now the coach's English did not sound like a storm around me. I could follow commands more quickly, and my body reacted with less hesitation than before. When he said, "Run faster," I moved right away. When he said, "Breathe," I answered with my rhythm and kept going. That change made me feel stronger, not only as a runner, but also as a learner. My pronunciation improved little by little because I kept repeating the coach's phrases every day. At first I only copied the sounds, but later I started to hear the difference between strong words and soft ones. I paid attention to the way he spoke, and I tried to match his voice as closely as I could. Soon I was not only understanding the commands, but also answering them naturally with short replies like "Okay, got it," or "I can do it." Those small answers made me feel part of the team in a new way. I no longer felt like the runner who was always trying to catch up. One morning, after a strong training session, the coach asked me to stay again while the others left the track. I was nervous for a moment, but this time my nervous feeling was different, because I also felt ready to hear something important. He looked at me with a calm expression and spoke slowly enough for me to understand every word. Then he told me the truth I had been waiting to hear since my first day at the club. He said he did not choose me because my English was already good or because I was the fastest. He chose me because he saw determination in the way I listened, repeated, struggled, and kept going. Hearing that answer touched me more deeply than I expected, because it changed how I saw myself. I had spent so much time thinking about my mistakes, my slow understanding, and my weak pronunciation in the beginning. But the coach had been seeing something else from the start: my effort, my courage, and my willingness to continue even when things felt difficult. In that moment, I understood that learning quickly is not only about language. It is also about staying brave when you feel behind, staying open when you feel confused, and staying present when you want to give up. As I walked home that day, the city around me looked the same, but I felt different inside. My English was still growing, and I still had a lot to learn, but now I trusted the way I was learning. I knew that every repeated phrase, every hard lap, and every difficult practice had built something strong in me. The coach had chosen my determination, not my perfect English, and that truth gave me real confidence. From that day on, I stopped measuring myself only by speed or perfect words. I began to understand that courage and persistence are also part of fluency, and that lesson stayed with me long after the practice ended.